we just have to make sure that we lean in so that they can see us. How do we look? How's our hair? Our necklace straight? Your glasses are so cute. Can I try them on?
Yeah, I won't be able to see without them.
And I won't be able to see with them. Oh, look, I look like Brooke. Okay, here she goes. So this girl right here, everybody, meet Brook Parcels. Brooke, I'm so excited that you decided to get into my minivan. And I'm assuming you've never been parking before. This is your first time parking. Well, it's going to be really fun. So get yourself ready, okay?
All right.
Okay, so Brook Parcels, you are 15 years old.
Yep.
You're actually the same age as my daughter and just a week away from her too. Your birthday's really close to her as well. And obviously goes to Holy Cross. Proud girl, right?
Yeah.
Not much choice. I have to wear my uniform, Michelle.
Yeah.
So you are the face and you speak very openly about living with FASD, which is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. So my first question to you, Brooke, is why do you tell your story?
It's always been something that people never knew. And in elementary school, no one knew what was going on with me. They thought I was this weird kid. And so in grade 8, I decided to make a speech for my gym for the annual speeches that we do. And it kind of just went from there. And I knew that I wanted my elementary school to at least know about it. But then it kind of blew up bigger than I thought. And it's just a great opportunity for me to tell people that, like, we're not abnormal. We're just special.
You were 6 years old when you were diagnosed.
Yes.
Do you remember being diagnosed?
I remember some of the doctor's appointments, like the physical checks, but other than that, I don't remember much.
So you were adopted.
Yes.
Do you have any relationship with your biological parents? No. Okay. So did you know, or your adopted parents know, that alcohol was a factor in the pregnancy?
Yeah, so I was born addicted to cocaine and alcohol. My mother and my birth father, they were both addicts. So the reason I was put up for adoption was because of that. So CAS let us know, like let my birth mom know. And so when I was old enough, we went for testing.
Wow. You were handed quite a card deck, weren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's interesting is FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, is exactly what it sounds like. It's a spectrum.
Yeah.
So can you educate people a little bit about what it is? Obviously, it's when the baby, the fetus, is exposed to alcohol.
Yes.
And you told me all it takes is...
1 drop.
Okay, so we're going to unpack that in a second because that blew my mind. But what's the spectrum?
So, the spectrum is the range of symptoms and where they are placed. So some people can be very high functioning with high motor tasks and low functioning with like social
Deficiencies.
Yes.
Or social abnormalities.
Yes.
Or abnormalities.
And like vice versa, and then there's everything in between. So like there's facial features, that's a symptom, like ADHD like symptoms, so hyperactivity, easily distracted, intellectual disabilities, so like learning disabilities, like the more common ones that we see among students. We have like a higher risk to developing mental illnesses because of where the alcohol affects the brain. We have, what else do we have? There's so many more.
It impacts your memory.
Yes.
Right? Aggressive behavior.
Yes, so that would be mental health.
So when I first heard about, I really learned about this a few years ago, and I was floored. I don't know that there's enough education and awareness around this disorder because I was shocked to find out that it was like a huge percentage, and I don't know it, so don't quote me, but of inmates. So those people that are in our judicial system are affected by fetal alcohol
Yes.
spectrum disorder. So we need to better understand this. And I think I'm going to start with you first before I talk about my own personal thoughts here. What are your symptoms?
So I have difficulty with the social aspects. So I cannot do small talk at all. I get too like stressed or like distracted. So that leading into hyperactivity. I can't focus on anything unless I'm moving. So then if I'm not moving, I'm getting distracted. So in school I have to work in a windowless room because otherwise I will be staring at the window for hours. In tests, I can't work in a classroom because I'm distracted about what the other students are doing and like scared if I'm falling behind. I struggle with like abstract learning, so like learning new languages, or like, I cannot spell for the life of me. Like I cannot spell a single word. I could have spelled it correct for years and then all of a sudden I'm not spelling it right. I do struggle with like a higher risk to mental illnesses. So I've developed social anxiety, I've developed depression, I have anger outbursts, usually if it's like my mom not letting me hang out with my friends or whatever. But majority of my symptoms are from the social aspect.
You're doing so great right now, though. And I think this is what's so hard for people to understand. They're looking at you and they're like, I don't see anything.
Mm-hmm. I'm not in a wheelchair.
You are just a regular, to me, you're my daughter, like sitting here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't see anything. And I think, you know, what I said to Brooke was, I said, Brooke, the shame of a mom, if you do know that you had 1 drop of alcohol, once you know that stat, you're like, but you think about, so you don't know, you miss a period. It's so innocent. And you know, I mean, you had an extreme circumstance.
Yeah.
You had a mom who was addicted to cocaine and alcohol. That's an extreme situation. But I'm thinking about all those people in between who maybe weren't even trying to conceive, or they accidentally missed a period. They didn't even know, and they had a couple glasses of wine, or they had a beer or two. And so now I'm going to walk around with shame because I'm like, oh my God, I might have hurt my baby. And I'm not going to tell anyone that I had any alcohol. So now the child is misdiagnosed.
Yeah. So
how do you let go of I feel like you don't carry shame. Like you're just very unapologetic about who you are, and it's very factual, and you're not less than because of, you are who you are. How do you do that?
you can't change who you are. Like, you can't change something that you were born with. Like, you can't change your birthmark. You can't change the color of your eyes. You can't change, like, your skin type or your height. And so it's just something that you have to accept, and something that you shouldn't be ashamed of, because if you are ashamed of it or guilty of it or insecure about it, it just lets other people bring you down for it.
You're so smart. You're gonna do great things. What do you want to do?
I would like to be a nurse in a Trauma 1 center working in the ER.
You're gonna do great at that. So you got adopted, obviously, by a great family, and you have a whole bunch of siblings.
Yep.
And you're doing really well today. What's your message or education that you spread when you talk? Because I know you give speeches.
I usually talk about what happened, like, in school. So there was a lot of bullying that went on. There was a lot of frustration with teachers and parents. There was like lack of knowledge that made my life difficult. And like, touching on that shame thing is like, I want moms in particular to not be ashamed of it through education, because if you're hiding that you drank alcohol, you're stopping the proper support for your child, and you're making it worse. Like, you can't hide it. because otherwise you're not going to help your child.
Give me goosebumps, girl. You're so insightful and wise beyond your years. You are. Because that is you hit the nail on the head. You can't help somebody if you don't know what they're dealing with.
And
right?
you can't help someone if you're not being truthful.
So 2 key messages I have out of this. Keep leaning in. I don't want to lose your beautiful face. See? If you're even thinking of having a baby, don't drink. That's huge to me. Like that seems so big. So is there any period in the pregnancy when it's less risky to have a drink?
No. So we all know the umbilical cord gives food to the baby. If there's alcohol in that, it is going right into their cells, and it's preventing the growth. And if it's later on in the pregnancy, so some people have terminated a pregnancy completely through drinking a lot of alcohol, stopping the embryo to grow. And then later on in a pregnancy, when the body starts developing, if you have alcohol, you're affecting the developmental process, which ultimately you're affecting the brain, because the brain developed first.
So don't drink. Whoa, that's a really, really big one. Is there anything you can do if you did have a drink? Do they have anything? So say all of a sudden, I didn't know, I wasn't planning on getting pregnant, and things happened, and I had a good night, and woo, or a bad night. Is there anything I can do if all of a sudden I've drank? Is there any, or do you know that answer?
There's nothing that you can do. Like, you can't remove the alcohol from your system. You can't, like, give a baby an injection to stop the alcohol from going into their system. You just live with it, and you have to make sure you go and see if that child has that disability from that mistake.
Okay, so don't drink. Got that one. Okay, check. You had a really important message for teachers.
Yeah.
What is it?
Just because they are higher functioning in some aspects of school does not mean that they need help in other aspects.
So the Tri-County, and I always say them wrong, the Tri-County Community Support Services, have they helped you?
Yes.
How?
They actually went to some meetings with me and some of my teachers to kind of set my teachers straight. So, like...
Or we would say that in a nicer way. We would say, help our teachers understand. That would be the nicer way to say that, Brooke.
Yeah.
Enable them with knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they would come in and just be like, this is what she needs, and like, this is what you need to provide her with. Sure, she may be like this, and this, but like with FASD, it's a spectrum, so like her symptoms could be mild to severe.
And so you don't take medication or anything?
Other
than for maybe your anxiety?
Yeah,
I guess, like, sorry, I meant there's ramifications of the FASD, anxiety and all of those things, but there's not like a medication for FASD.
No, you can take medication to treat the symptoms, but you can't take medication for FASD in particular.
So we need to be having conversations about this.
Mm-hmm.
The schools need to be better informed about this.
Yes.
We need to understand that the spectrum is gigantic, and that
it's
somebody
huge.
might look completely normal. I think this is what's so challenging, right? So, and I asked you about how they tested you.
Yes.
What was the testing process like?
So first they need to have a you go to the doctor, your family doctor, and you talk about the issue that you're worried about or concerned about.
What were your presenting issues? Do you remember?
My mom said that as a toddler, it was extreme hyperactivity. So like, when I started to walk, I was not walking, I was running, and like I would run into doors and like constantly fall everywhere I went. Like, I wasn't listening. So it was like common signs of severe ADHD.
Okay.
As a toddler. But we knew the history, So my mom went in and was like, we need to get her tested for FASD because I don't want the wrong diagnosis.
So there's a big take-home message too, as a parent. Advocating for that testing, I think, is a big...
Yeah, because I couldn't advocate.
I wouldn't even know
2
to
or
ask
3.
for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I feel like I wouldn't even know to say that.
You just gotta make an appointment and go in and talk.
Okay, but today, how are you feeling? Like, how are you doing?
There's definitely some challenges. Like, starting up a new semester, it's hard for me because the anxiety piece to go out to my teachers and be like, this is what I need. But like, I figured out a system actually with Tri-Counties to help me tell my teachers. So I write letters before school starts and give them to each teacher. But other than that,
What would you write?
I would just write, like, so for tests, I need to go to resource. I can't sit in a chair that is close to a window. If the instructions or the notes aren't read out loud, I will not know what to do.
Wow, that's really smart.
Yeah.
Because the teacher has no, if you don't educate and advocate, how are they supposed to help you?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. I love you. I think you're brilliant. I can't wait to see what you do with your life. I can't wait to read your best-selling book. I'm 10 years out of having a baby, so maybe things have changed when I go for my prenatal care and all of this information is accessible. I don't know that it is, and if it isn't, if you know anybody in your life that's thinking about having a baby, or is in sort of those years of getting pregnant, show them this video. The other thing I want to talk about, and I have no idea where we're at, and I brought this up to Kim, who oversees, Kim's title is the FASD coordinator at Tri-County Community Support Services. The one piece of the puzzle that I feel like nobody's really talking about, but she told me they are starting to do a lot of research on, is sperm. So for me, I'm like, okay, we know, we hear all about what happens to us as women with the egg and the placenta and the umbilical cord. But my question was, well, what if we know a man has had a lot to drink or has used or abused drugs and then impregnates a woman? Like, how is that sperm? What's that sperm carrying?
So the use of drugs and alcohol changes genetics within the sperm. So for me, that meant he was changing my genetics to make me have a higher risk to be addicted to substances.
I was going to ask you that. Are you more at risk for addiction?
Yes.
So what do you do to support yourself to ensure that doesn't happen?
I mean, I haven't been so great at it, especially like being in grade 10 and like wanting to be like everyone else. I've had my fair share of experiences, but I always try to keep it within moderation. So it's not something that I always have access to, and it's not something that my mom will go out and get for me. Like, it has to be something that my friends will go out and get with me, and like, it's not even...
Do you hate drugs because of your biological parents?
Hate them with a passion. Absolutely hate them.
So as always, I turn the camera off, we start talking again, and we start to share, and I said to Brooke, do you forgive your biological parents?
So, I mainly forgive them because it would have started from a mental illness or a tough time in their life. It didn't start just because they decided to go pick up a bottle of vodka at the LCBO. It started because they needed that to make themselves feel better. And an addiction on its own is its own mental illness. Like, it's not something that can be fixed overnight. It's something that needs intense help and therapy. And it all starts from a rough place in someone's life. And I can't blame them for that.
Smart kid. You're gonna do great, kid. You're amazing. Parking with MF, proudly sponsored by JJ Stewart Motors. Family owned and operated for over 100 years. Small town service, big city selection. Go visit them, Highway 7 on your way into Norwood, or check them out online, jjstewart.ca, to find your perfect vehicle.